The gate creaked as Edric pushed it open. The farm looked empty. Broken fences, sagging roof, dead fields. Then 3 tall, green-skinned figures stepped from the shadows. One moved forward. "This land," she said, her amber eyes locked onto his, "is not abandoned." Behind him his daughter squeezed his hand until his knuckles ached. The town of Dustfall smelled like burned wood and broken promises. Edric Marsh had walked its streets for 2 years after his wife died, and every corner held something he did not want to remember. A chair she used to sit in, a window she used to watch from, a silence she used to fill. The silence was the worst part, so he sold everything that could be sold. He packed what was left into a single cart, a few tools, a worn rifle, a box of his daughter Lena's drawings, coloured in bright strokes of chalk, full of animals and mountains, and a house with smoke coming from the chimney. And he drove away from Dustfall without looking back. The land deed was cheap, almost too cheap. A merchant named Cray had pushed it across the counter with a grin that showed too many teeth. "Old Harrow Farm," the man had said, "abandoned since the border wars. Fertile land, good water, just needs some work." Edric had not asked too many questions. He had not wanted to know if there was something wrong with it. He just needed somewhere to go. The road from Dustfall to Harrow took 3 days. Lena sat beside him on the cart, small and quiet, her feet not quite reaching the edge of the seat. She watched the landscape change from dusty streets to open plains, from brown rooftops to dry golden grass that swayed under a pale sky. She did not complain about the dust or the heat, she just watched. Edric had always loved that about her. On the second night, they camped near a dry riverbed. Lena had found a stone by the fire, small, dark, with a thin crack running through it like a scar. "It looks like it got hurt," she said, holding it up. "Rocks don't get hurt," Edric said. She had looked at him with those serious eyes she sometimes had. "You got hurt," she said, "and you're still here." He had not answered, but he had kept the stone. Now it sat in his coat pocket, and he pressed his fingers against it as the cart creaked down the last stretch of road toward Harrow Farm. The farm appeared through the morning haze, like something that had been forgotten by the world. Broken fences lined the perimeter. The barn leaned sideways like a tired man. The roof of the main house had caved in on one corner. Fields that had once been planted lay cracked and empty, split by the dry season, but the well was still standing. That was something. Edric stepped down from the cart and took a slow breath. The air here was dry and smelled of dust and old grass and something mineral like rock after rain. He could fix fences, he could patch a roof, he could plant in dead soil if it came to that. He had done harder things. "Is this ours?" Lena asked from the cart. "It's ours," he said. She looked at it for a long time. "It's broken," she said. "Yes," he said. "We'll fix it." She nodded. She trusted him when he said things like that. He hoped, silently, that he deserved it. He pushed open the wooden gate. It groaned on its hinges, loud and sharp in the morning quiet. And that was when the silence changed. Footsteps, heavy, coming from the direction of the barn. Edric went still. Lena's hand found his. He felt something old and cold move up the back of his neck. 3 figures stepped from the shadows between the barn and the house. They were tall, taller than any man he had ever seen, and their skin was green. Edric did not reach for his rifle. He did not know why exactly. Perhaps it was the way they moved. No rush, no threat in their steps. Or perhaps it was that the largest of the 3 had already raised one hand, palm forward, in a gesture that meant something even across the distance of strangers. They were orcs. He had seen orcs before, twice, both times from a distance. Both times in the company of soldiers who had not spoken kindly of them. The stories that followed orcs through human towns were dark ones. Savage, bloodthirsty, built for war. But these 3 did not look like a war party. The one who had raised her hand stood at the front. She was broad-shouldered and strong, her skin a deep jade that caught the morning light cleanly. Her dark hair was pulled back in thick braids, tied with thin leather cord. Her eyes, amber, steady, moved from Edric to Lena and back. Behind her, to the left, stood a taller figure with lighter hair, long and loose around her shoulders. She had her arms crossed, but her posture was not hostile, more like someone waiting to see what would happen next. The third was slightly shorter, with a more open face. She was watching Lena with an expression that was harder to name. "This land," the first one said, "is not abandoned." Her voice was low and careful, not a threat, a fact. "I have a deed," Edric said. His voice came out steadier than he felt. "From who?" "A merchant in Dustfall, man named Cray." The three exchanged a look. The woman with the loose hair let out a short breath, not quite a laugh. "Cray," the leader said, and the word had weight in her mouth, the kind of weight a stone has after it's been underwater. "He sold you something that was never his." Edric was quiet for a moment. He turned over the words and found that he believed her. "Then tell me how it is," he said. "This farm was abandoned after the border wars," she said, "by humans who did not come back. We came here 6 months ago. We repaired what we could. We planted in the east field. We made it a place to stay." She looked at Lena again. "We are not leaving," she said. "I'm not asking you to," Edric said. She had not expected that answer. He saw it in the way she went very still for just a moment. "I have nowhere else to go," he said simply. "And neither, it sounds like, do you?" A long silence followed. The morning bird started up somewhere in the dry grass beyond the fence. The cart horse stamped behind him. "My name is Edric," he said. "That's my daughter, Lena. We came a long way. We're not armed for war. We're just tired." The leader looked at him for a long time. "Jara," she said finally. She gestured to the one with loose hair. "Velira." She gestured to the third. "Maeria." He held each name for a moment, like he was setting them in a place he would not forget. "There is more house than the three of us need," Jara said, "and more land." "I know how to work it," he said. Another silence, weighted differently. A decision was being made inside it. "Half the land," Jara said. "Half the water rights, separate living quarters until we understand each other." "Agreed," Edric said. He let out a slow breath through his nose. Lena, still holding his hand, looked up at the 3 orcs. "Do you have any food?" she asked. The first week at Harrow Farm was built mostly from silence and careful watching. Edric rose before the sun each morning and worked until his hands ached. He mended fences along the western boundary, nailing boards back into place and pulling out rotted posts with the flat end of a crowbar. He hauled water from the well to the dry earth of the south field and tried to figure out what, if anything, might still grow there. The orcs worked the eastern side. He could see them from a distance, moving through the cracked rows of the field with tools he did not recognize. Wide, flat-bladed implements that broke the soil differently than any human plow he had seen. They worked in a steady rhythm, rarely speaking to each other. Sometimes Jara would stop and press both hands flat against the earth, eyes closed, for a moment before moving on. He did not ask about it. Lena watched from the porch. She was cautious at first, the way children sometimes are with things they have been taught to fear. She stayed close to Edric in the mornings, trailing him to the fence line and sitting on a post while he worked, asking questions about nails and wood grain and why the sky turned orange before rain. But she watched the orcs too. Mostly she watched Maeria. Maeria had a way of moving that was different from the others. Slower, more observant. Where Jara was purposeful and Velira was efficient, Maeria would sometimes stop in the middle of a task and look at something for a long moment, a beetle climbing a fence post, a cloud moving strange, the way the light hit the dry grass at midday and turned it the color of old copper. On the third day, Maeria set a piece of fruit on the porch step and walked away without a word. It was red, with small spots of gold, nothing Edric recognized. Lena stared at it for 10 minutes before picking it up. "Is it safe?" she asked. "I don't know," Edric said honestly. Lena ate it anyway. "It's sweet," she said, surprised, "and a little bit sour." On the fourth day, Maeria repaired the broken handle on the farm's largest water bucket, while Lena watched from 3 feet away without being asked. She did not speak to the girl. She just worked. Lena moved to 2 feet away. On the 5th day, Lena fell running across the dry courtyard and hit the dirt with both palms and one knee. She sat up, eyes wet, looking at the scrape on her palm. Before Edric could reach her, Maeria was crouching beside her. She looked at the scrape, said nothing, reached into the small pouch at her belt and drew out a folded leaf, dark green, waxy, and pressed it gently against the wound. "Keeps it from going bad," she said. Lena looked at the leaf, then at Maeria's face. "Does it sting?" "A little." "No, okay," Lena said, and let her hold it there. That night at dinner, Lena told Edric that Maeria's hands were the largest she had ever seen, and that she thought they were also the most careful. She said it the way she said things that were simply true. Edric looked across the yard at the lamp burning in the barn, where the 3 orcs kept their quarters. A tension he had been carrying since the gate loosened, just slightly, not trust, not yet, but the possibility of it. The stone in his pocket felt lighter. He had not understood until now that it was something he had been carrying for a very long time, without knowing it. The nights at Harrow Farm were wide and dark and full of sound. Edric lay awake on the 3rd week, listening to the wind come down from the canyon to the north, the one the local maps called Shadow's Cut. It moved through the dry grass with a low whistle that sometimes sounded like breath, sometimes like something trying to speak. He had heard stories about that canyon growing up. Most people in the frontier towns had. They called it a dead place. A place where things had happened that the land had not forgotten. He tried not to think about it, but some nights, when the wind came in a certain way, he would catch himself sitting up in bed, heart moving a little faster than it should be. On one of those nights, he found Jara outside. She was standing near the well, very still, looking north. He thought about going back inside. Instead, he walked over and stood a few feet from her. "The canyon," he said. She did not look at him. "You feel it too." "I feel something." She was quiet for a moment. The wind came again, low and long. "We did not choose this place only because it was empty," she said. "We came here because Maria dreamed it." He waited. "She has always had them," Jara said. "Dreams that show things. Most of the time just small things, weather, which paths to take. But this one was specific, a farm at the edge of a canyon, a child with dark eyes, a fire shared between people who had no reason to share it." Edric thought about Lena's dark eyes. "And the canyon?" he asked. Jara finally looked at him. "The dream did not show what was in it," she said, "only that it was important, that something there was waiting." "Waiting for what?" "That," she said, "we do not yet know." Edric looked north. Shadow's Cut was invisible in the darkness, but he knew its shape. He had ridden past its mouth on the way in and noticed the way his horse slowed without being told to. "My wife died in a place that felt like that," he said. "Heavy, like the air knew something was coming." Jara said nothing. "She was sick," he said. "It wasn't sudden, but it still felt sudden." He wasn't sure why he was telling her this. Maybe because she did not fill the silence after he spoke. She just let the words sit. "Grief is not something that waits until you are ready," Jara said finally. "It comes when it comes." He pressed the stone in his pocket without thinking about it. "You said you were expelled from your clan," he said. "Yes." "Was that grief too?" Jara looked north for a long time before answering. "We refused an order," she said. "Our chief wanted to raid a settlement, a small one. Families. Valera said no. I agreed. Maria had already walked away. And they expelled you for that. They called it cowardice. It wasn't." "No," she said, "but the word followed us anyway." The wind moved through the grass again. "We have both been called things we aren't," Edric said. Jara turned and looked at him. For the first time since he had arrived, the corners of her mouth moved. Not quite a smile, but close enough to recognition that he felt it. "Sleep," she said. "Tomorrow the south fence needs new posts. He went back inside. But before he slept, he pressed the cracked stone in his palm and thought about a dream that had led three strangers to a broken farm at the edge of a haunted canyon, and wondered what lay ahead. The south field gave its first shoots on a cool Tuesday morning. Lena found them first, thin green threads pushing up through the cracked soil, barely the height of a fingernail. She ran back to the house shouting and pulled Edric out by the sleeve to see. He crouched down and looked at them for a long time. A tightness in his chest he had forgotten was there eased open, just a little. Velira came across the yard and stood beside them. She studied the shoots with a professional eye, leaning in, pressing the soil gently beside the roots. "They will take," she said. "The soil is recovering." "How long?" Edric asked. 3 weeks to something worth eating, 6 to something worth storing. He nodded. 6 weeks felt like a long time. It also felt like a promise. That afternoon, something else happened. A rider came down the road from the north. A single man, tall, wearing the dark coat and wide-brimmed hat of a frontier lawman. He pulled up at the gate and looked at the farm for a long time before getting down from his horse. His name was Holloway. He was the boundary warden for the Ashrock district, which included Harrow Farm. He came inside and accepted a cup of water and looked at the 5 of them gathered in the kitchen, with the face of someone doing a careful kind of arithmetic. "Word reached Ashrock," he said, "that there's a mixed settlement out here, humans and orcs on the same deed." "There's a human on the deed," Edric said. "The rest is a private arrangement." "Arrangements like this have caused trouble before," Holloway said. He did not say it with heat, more with the tone of someone reading from a list of things he was required to mention. Jara said nothing, but Edric could see, from the slight stillness in her posture, the way she had gone somewhere internal, prepared. "No trouble here," Edric said. "We're farming, that's all." Holloway looked at Lena. Lena looked back at him. "Is this your father?" he asked. "Yes," she said. "Is everything all right?" She tilted her head. "Myria fixed my hand when I fell," she said. "And Velira showed me how to check the soil with my fingers, and Jara told me that the north wind sounds like that because of the shape of the canyon." Holloway looked at Myria, then at Velira, then at Jara, then back at Edric. "Deed in order?" he asked. "In my name," Edric said. "Bought and paid for." A pause. "I'll note the settlement is occupied and in use," Holloway said, standing. "That should prevent any further claims on the land." He put his hat back on. "Cray's been reported twice this year for selling bad deeds," he said at the door. "I wouldn't lose sleep over what he told you the land was worth." He left. Nobody spoke for a moment after the gate closed. Then Velira let out a breath. "He was not hostile," she said, sounding slightly surprised. "He was doing his job," Edric said. Jara looked at him. "In our experience," she said carefully, "that is not always distinct from hostile." Edric thought about that. "I know," he said. "I'm sorry that's been true." She nodded once. Not forgiveness, not dismissal, just acknowledgement. That evening they ate together for the first time, all 5 of them, at the long wooden table near the fire. Velira brought root vegetables she had dried in the east field. Edric cooked flatbread on the iron pan. Lena told a long, circular story about a beetle she had seen that she was convinced was magic. Nobody told her it probably wasn't. It was Maria who first told Edric about the spirit. She came to him on a still afternoon while he was mending the roof patch over the east bedroom. She stood below and waited until he looked down at her. "There is something in the canyon," she said. "I have been putting off telling you." He climbed down and set the hammer on the porch rail. He wiped his hands on his trousers. She looked at the ground for a moment in the way she did when she was choosing words carefully. "I have felt it since we arrived," she said, "in the dreams and in waking moments. At first it was only at night. Now it comes in the day, too." "What kind of something, he asked. "Old," she said. "Angry, I think. Or perhaps not angry. perhaps just unfinished, like something that was interrupted before it could be put right. He thought of the wind coming through the grass at night. "Has it done anything?" he said. "Not yet, but it is getting closer." She pressed her lips together. "In the old practices of my people, a spirit like this one must be acknowledged, spoken to, given the chance to say what it needs. And if we don't?" She looked at him steadily. "Then it finds other ways to be heard." That night the well rope snapped without being touched. The next morning Edric found the east field fence posts pulled out of the ground and laid flat in a pattern he could not make sense of. Valera said they had been standing the night before. Jara walked the perimeter and came back with her expression closed and tight. "We cannot ignore it," she said. "Then we don't," Edric said. They prepared for 2 days. Myria gathered materials in the way of her tradition, bones left by animals, certain stones from the dry riverbed, cord braided in a specific pattern she did not explain in detail. She worked quietly, and Edric did not interfere. On the 3rd night they went to Shadows Cut together. The canyon mouth was wide, flanked by 2 columns of pale rock that caught the moonlight. Inside, the air was different, heavier, close, the way air gets in a room that has been shut too long. Myria built a small fire at the center. She did not perform anything dramatic. She sat, she placed her materials in an arrangement around the flame. And she spoke. Her words were in the tongue of her clan, low and rhythmic. Edric could not understand them, but he felt them in his chest, the way you feel a drum from a distance. Lena had insisted on coming. She sat between Edric and Valera, very still, with the cracked stone she had taken from Edric's pocket, pressed in both hands. The fire flickered, the canyon air moved, and then the weight lifted. Edric felt it as a physical sensation, like pressure releasing from his ears. Jara exhaled beside him. Valera's shoulders dropped. The fire burned quietly for a long time. No wind came into the canyon. The pale rock walls held the warmth of the flame like a bowl holds water. Myria spoke one last phrase and pressed her hands flat against the ground. After a moment she sat back. "It was a soldier," she said quietly, "killed here in the border wars and never recovered. He needed someone to say that it was over, that the war was done." She looked at the fire. "I told him, and I think he heard." Lena set the cracked stone down at the edge of the fire. "For the soldier," she said. Nobody corrected her. 3 weeks after the canyon, a different kind of trouble arrived. 5 men came up the road from Dustfall in the early afternoon, when the light was still full and the shadows short. They rode in a loose line, and they had the look of men who had decided something before they got there. Their horses were well fed. Their gear was new. Their leader was a thick-shouldered man, with grey at his temples and a badge that had been poorly polished. His name was Renner, and he claimed to work for a land company called Ashrock Holdings that Edric had never heard of. "This property," Renner said, standing just inside the gate, "was flagged in Ashrock's records as unoccupied frontier land, available for legal purchase." "It was purchased," Edric said, "by me, a year before your company's flag, I'd guess." Renner looked past him at Jara, Valera, and Myria standing in the yard. His eyes moved over them the way certain men's eyes did, calculating, looking for weakness, already writing a conclusion. "Be that as it may," he said, "the presence of non-human occupants on frontier land is a complication that our company's legal instruments may allow us to challenge." "May allow," Edric said. "It's a process," Renner said. "He doesn't have anything real," Valera said quietly to Edric, in a voice too low for Renner to hear. "It's pressure. He's hoping we'll step back." Edric nodded almost imperceptibly. "I have a deed registered with the Dustfall Land Office," Edric said. "Signed and sealed. The boundary warden has already confirmed our occupation." Renner's jaw tightened. "The warden's confirmation is procedural," he said. "Our legal team in the city may see it differently." "Then your legal team can make the ride out and talk to me directly," Edric said. "Until they do, I'd ask you and your men to leave my property." He said it the way he had once heard a judge speak. No threat in it, just the plain shape of the thing. One of the riders behind Renner shifted in his saddle and let one hand drop toward his hip. Jara moved to stand beside Edric. She was simply there, tall, steady, saying nothing. She did not need to. Velira moved to the other side. Maria stayed back, near the porch, where Lena was watching from the doorway with wide eyes and very still hands. Renner looked at the three of them. He looked at the men behind him. He counted something silently. He looked at Edric. "We'll be back," he said. "With your legal team," Edric said pleasantly. "I look forward to it." Renner turned his horse and rode. His men followed. When they were gone, Jara looked at Edric. "You were not afraid," she said. "I was a little afraid," he said honestly. She considered that. "You did not show it." Neither did you." Jara looked at the ground for a moment. "No," she said, "I did not." There was something in that, a recognition between them, quiet and precise, like two people finding they have the same scar in the same place. Neither of them said anything more about it. They did not need to. That night, Edric wrote a letter to the Dustfall Land Office, formally documenting the ongoing occupation and requesting a record of the property's legal standing. He also wrote to Holloway, the warden, explaining what had happened. He sent both by rider the next morning. Then he went back to mending the west fence. The work was steady and physical and did not ask much of him at all. He did not think about Renner more than was useful. The letter from the land office came back in 12 days. It confirmed the deed. It noted no competing claims on record. It included a secondary document, a formal warden's statement, signed by Holloway, attesting that Harrow Farm was legally occupied and in active agricultural use. Edric read both letters twice, then folded them carefully and put them in the box with Lena's drawings. He sat at the table for a moment, with his hands flat on the wood, looking at nothing in particular. Then he went outside and told the others. Renner did not come back. Word reached them through a trader passing south that Ashrock Holdings had run into a different kind of trouble in the city. Something about contested properties in the valley districts. Their attention, apparently, had moved elsewhere. The farm had another kind of season after that. The south field began to produce in earnest. Beans first. Then a hardy root vegetable that Valera called by a name in her own language, which she translated roughly as the red one that keeps through winter. Edric planted wheat along the repaired west boundary and tended it in the cool morning hours with Lena beside him, learning the difference between soil that was ready and soil that still needed time. Miria spent part of each week at Shadow's Cut, not because of the spirit, that weight had lifted and stayed lifted, but she said the place had changed, that something in it had become, if not warm, then at least less cold. She brought stones back sometimes, which she arranged along the east boundary in a pattern she did not explain. Nobody asked her to explain it. Lena had started to help her. Jara, in the evenings, sometimes sat on the porch and told stories about the places her clan had travelled, the salt flats to the west, where the horizon vanished into white, the mountain passes in the deep north, where the ice never left and where the orcs of the Broken Fang clan had carved their names into the stone over 5 generations. "Will you ever go back?" Lena asked once. Jara set down her cup. "There is nothing to go back to," she said. "The clan moved on. The paths are different now." "Does that make you sad?" Another pause. "Yes," Jara said simply. "Sometimes." Lena nodded like this was an acceptable answer, which seemed to mean something to Jara. Valera taught Edric the soil-pressing technique, reading moisture depth and composition by the way the earth resisted your fingertips. It had taken her years to learn, she said. She expected it to take him longer. He surprised her by the 3rd week. "You have farmer's hands," she said. "They already know things. They just needed the right question." Edric looked at his palms, cracked at the knuckles, darkened with soil. He supposed she was right. The fire in the main room became the gathering point in the evenings. Not planned, not formal, just a slow accumulation of habit. Lena would come in from wherever she had been, and the others would drift in behind her, and someone would add wood, and someone else would make tea. And for an hour or two, the silence between them had no weight in it at all. Outside, the frontier was still what it was. Distant towns still held their old suspicions. The road from Dustfall still carried news that was not always good. Some things did not change quickly, and he had stopped expecting them to. But inside the firelight, 5 people had built something from almost nothing, like the farm itself, repaired board by board until it held. The morning Edric understood it fully was an ordinary one. He had woken early, habit after 7 months at Harrow Farm, and gone out to check the wheat along the west boundary. The sky was pale and clean, the air cool with the last of the season's edge before the warmth settled in for good. He was halfway down the row when he heard Lena's voice. He turned. She was at the edge of the east field with Myria, crouching over the soil with her small hands pressed flat against it the way she had been taught. She was talking, quietly focused, and Myria was listening, nodding sometimes, correcting her grip on the dirt with a gentle touch. Jara was at the well, drawing water with the new rope that Velira had braided from the hemp they had grown at the far boundary. The braid had a pattern in it. Something Velira had said was a mark of a place you had chosen to belong to. He stood and watched the 4 of them for a moment. The cracked stone was in his pocket. He had stopped noticing the weight of it somewhere around the 3rd month, and now its absence would have felt strange. He thought about the merchant named Cray and his too wide grin, and the deed that was almost certainly sold in bad faith. He thought about the canyon and the soldier's spirit and the small stone Lena had placed at the edge of the fire. He thought about his wife, about the chair she used to sit in and the window she used to watch from. He had run from all of it. He had not known what else to do, and the running had led him here. He went back to the wheat and kept working. At midday, the 5 of them ate together in the shade of the repaired barn. Velira had made something with the dried roots and a handful of spices she kept in a small tin, warm and sharp and strange and good. Lena told another long circular story, this time about a bird she had seen that she was convinced had been following her for a week. "It might be a sign," Myria said seriously. "Of what?" Lena asked. "That you are interesting," Myria said. Lena accepted this completely. Edric looked around the table, a broken farm, a haunted canyon, a deed of questionable origin. 5 people who had no reason to trust each other, who had found, in spite of everything, a way to be something together. Not quite a family. The word was too small, or not the right shape. Something they had made themselves from the pieces available, without a name for it yet. He thought about the cracked stone and what Lena had said by the dry riverbed on the 2nd night of the road. "You got hurt, and you're still here." The stone still had its crack. He had not tried to fill it. He did not think that was the point. That evening, after Lena had gone to sleep, Edric sat on the porch alone for a while. From the north, carried lightly on the wind, came the sound of the canyon. Low, quiet, the kind of sound a place makes when it has been heard. He sat with it. In the distance, far past the dark line of the northern ridge, something moved against the sky. A faint light, there and then gone, like a signal from somewhere he had never been. He noted it carefully. He did not know yet what it meant, or where it pointed, but the stone in his pocket told him he would find out. Did you enjoy the story? Subscribe to the channel to watch more stories like this one. Leave a like, it helps the channel a lot. And drop a comment down below. I always read them and use your feedback to make our content better. Thanks so much. Orc-Bound Legacy.